So, Three Rusty Nails has a question saying, so morality is both subjective and objective. The short answer is yes. The longer answer, which you're going to get, is descriptively speaking, as in the way it works out in the world, it's a combination of subjective, relative, and objective statements. There are people with deontological rule sets, whether that's divine command theory or it's gone Kantianism, that's the one, or a different deontological set that they're working against. They have an objective standard, but you could say that there is a subjective element to it. People who might choose a particular consequentialist moral theory, you could say that there's a subjective element to the choice that they've made, but the normative ethical theory is still objective in and of itself. If you
The way I
take
address it, the way I tend to sum it up, which I think we've gone over before ourselves, is that there can be objective truths in different moral structures, in different moral theories. Things can be objectively good and objectively bad. But as morality descriptively works in the real world, you do have to make a choice as to what moral theory you go by, which does make objective frameworks on a subjective foundation.
Exactly. And if we take it back to what I feel the purpose of morality is, which is human flourishing and well-being, and it does seem to be represented in people who are much brighter than me, that it's either a first order goal or at least a second or third order effect of their particular moral theory, that flourishing and well-being and building a collaborative and cohesive society and all of that sort of stuff does seem to be what morality is about. We can make objective statements against that. And we can even do it in the sense that in this situation it's that, and in this situation we shouldn't do that, and so on and so forth. But even still, there can be an argument that someone says, well, that's not what I think morality is about. So in practice, I think that as in descriptively about how it works in the world, it's definitely not completely objective. Now, a normative ethical theory is objective. The choice might not be which one you're doing. And morality, at least normatively speaking, does seem to be objective, with maybe a few subjective elements to it. And I think at some point we might have enough knowledge about morality and the way things work to actually attain an objective standard, that like a normative objective standard that perhaps is even correct, and that we can actually say, no, this is what it is. But we're not there yet.
I don't think we ever will be.
It's hard to know.
That's part of the discussions going on in sort of meta ethics. Discussions not about moral theory, but about morality itself. Is it objective? Is there a purpose? Is there a normative standard that one size fits all? Those are all sort of meta ethical discussions, and it's far from actually being close to being resolved.
And considering we've been talking about this for nearly 10,000 years, it probably won't be.
No. If we'd have stuck to religion, it probably would have been.
Yeah.
Because it's God says so and so. Morals come from God. Therefore, there is only one normative standard, and that comes from God. But in
unless
reality,
a new religion comes along.
Yeah, but then they just killed out new religion. Subsume it into their own set, or argue that their God is wrong. You know, that kind of thing.
I think of any examples, no.
No, Islam wasn't anything like that. No. But yeah, it's like you say. I'm not sure that there ever will be any sort of conclusion on that, because like Mackie says, maybe we're looking at it wrong and we're discussing it in terms of truths, but they're not actually truths. It's like a combination of emotivism and normativity and that kind of thing.
And society develops as well in what we are capable of doing as individuals. So those individual things which might have been normatively agreeable on when life was far simpler, there's going to be further and further exceptions and branches and things. And
Yeah. Oh no, definitely.
that
I mean,
complicates.
that's the thing. Like that's why I think you can have an objective standard, but obviously objective other than that's why you can't have an absolute or universal standard, because life changes so much in and of itself. I mean, you could think about things like eugenics, the way it used to work in comparison to an ideological version of eugenics, and actually you could have a version of it that could be ethical. I mean, I know that I'm probably have caused a number of people to turn off now, but I think that you could have. Let's leave eugenics.
I've argued for this several times in the past, but I'm really enjoying watching you paint yourself into a corner, so I'm not helping.
Yeah, so I'm stepping back and I'm going to go cloning. Let's think about how cloning used to work to how cloning could potentially work in the future. We could have an ethical version of it. One of the biggest issues with cloning is all the deformities and things like that. But if we actually got to a point where there was no harm caused to any of the creatures we happened to be cloning, we could actually just say, well, actually, we're just repopulating a particular species through the last 10 of it, and we're multiplying that 10, and there's no negative effect. So actually, we're not doing any harm. We're actually doing some form of good. You know,
there's questions like that in ethics, the morality of cloning, the morality of genetically designing our children once the technology becomes available. There is a lot of discussion like that goes on in ethics.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be, and maybe there is, like we were saying, there is an answer that is that has a truth for the time, but that is what we're saying is for the time it holds that truth, but it doesn't mean that change the context and actually there's a different truth available. Equally, I do think there are certain things that we can look back on and say, no, they were never right. For example, slavery is one of the big ones that I think that no matter what lens you put it through and what arguments that you can make for it, I mean, I know positives have come out of slavery, but ultimately slavery is wrong.
Yeah. You'd be talking about something like moral epistemology then. Whether knowledge is possible, can we obtain it? What does it mean to have moral knowledge? And you can also discuss morality in terms of ontology. So it's a part of the fabric of the universe. I'm not sure that there is moral ontology as such, just moral epistemology.
Sounds interesting. Sounds like something we need to cover off, and sounds like something I need to go away and look into more before trying to hold a conversation on.
I'm sorry to bring up all these new ideas.
I need to look up what the actual words mean, let alone what the theories mean. Jesus Christ.
Moral means basically you need more Al's in your life, basically. So
yeah,
you need someone to call you Betty.
We need more Al Bundy.
Not Ted Bundy.
No, Al Bundy. They're sort of similar, but one's a little more extreme in the hate of women.